So good afternoon. Welcome to the first of our webinar series. This is the Reveal webinar series where we're hopefully going to take you through some hints and tips and tricks in terms of marketing. So the first session is on social media. So we're going to look at social media strategy in 5 simple steps, just to give you a bit of background as to who we are and what we do. I know we've got quite a few clients that are watching today, so hello and welcome to you. We've also got quite a number of unknown people that have signed up as well, so a big welcome to you guys as well. So in terms of Big Wave, we are a full service agency. That's me, just to prove who I am. There's my face. I'm the digital director here at Big Wave Media. So we're a marketing agency, we're a Google partner. We're a Hootsuite solution partner, which is a social dashboard, which we'll talk a little bit about in a bit, but not from a sales perspective. And we're also a RA recommended agency, so recommended agency register. So in terms of Big Wave Media, just to give you a bit of context to our social media credentials. So we work across the whole of the UK, so we're looking at social channels from a wide range of organisations across the country. We have about 180 plus pages in our Facebook Business Manager account, and about 80 Twitter accounts. So we're seeing a lot of activity that's going on across a wide range of different industries and businesses across the UK, but also specifically within the Southwest. We've got a team of 44 members of staff, and we are based in Exeter. We've got offices in Torquay and Plymouth as well. So today's session is on creating a social media strategy. So we're going to plow straight into it. There are 5 simple steps that we would recommend. We're going to go through each one individually, and we'll show a few examples and some ideas that hopefully will kind of, depending on where you are in your business and what you're doing with social media, hopefully give you a bit of strategy towards what you're aiming to do. So the 5 steps that we would recommend are: Number 1, outline your goals and define your audience. Number 2, audit your existing channels. Number 3, develop your content strategy. Number 4, use analytics to track your progress. And number 5, adjust your strategy as needed. So as I said, we're going to go through each one. So we'll jump straight into the first one. So this is outline your goals and to define your audience. What we tend to see happens quite often with businesses is that they'll start using social media for a range of different reasons, and it may be to try and achieve sales, and it may be because you feel like you ought to because other businesses or your competitors are on those channels, and you kind of feel a need to jump onto them. One of the things that we would really recommend that you do is to outline what the goal for you, either using an individual channel or using social media in general, is. And there can be a whole load of different goals that you might have. So as we go through them, we'll just have a look at some of the types of goals you might have. Now this isn't an exhaustive list, and there are plenty of other ones, but as an example of the kind of common ones that we would see. So one of them might be to improve your reach or exposure. So you might have a business that's doing pretty well, it's pretty successful, but maybe in a particular area you don't have that much exposure, you don't have that much brand recognition perhaps, and you're looking to grow out that kind of side of things. So you could use social for that. The next 2 kind of dovetail together, so generating leads and generating sales. You may want to use social media to act core, generate business. If that is your core goal, you will find it hard to achieve that. It tends to be a secondary goal as part of one of the other core ones. So you'll tend to find that sales comes as a natural process of trying to achieve another goal. And as we get into things like content strategy and analytics, we'll kind of look at how you could do that. Another goal might be to grow partnerships. So you might have some good partnerships with other local businesses or organisations. So you may be looking to grow referral business or partnerships in terms of maybe suppliers and routes to other markets. You may be looking to reduce your marketing expenditure. May seem like a weird thing for a marketing agency to say, I suppose, but actually, if you end up printing a lot of stuff, so say you have time-specific events like timetables, you may wish to try and drive people online to view those timetables rather than spending money printing timetables and just drive it digitally. You may look to improve your customer service, and this is probably the biggest growing area as a business that you can start to tackle social media and use social media for. So we're seeing a lot more organisations take customer service a lot more seriously on social media. If you look at a lot of the bigger organisations, particularly in the telecoms market, which is it's got hundreds of examples of businesses that are using social almost purely for customer service. There are some great organisations that use it as a communication method, and that is effectively what social media is. It's a form of communication. And so often you see businesses that use it to not really talk at people, or talk to people, but rather to talk at them. So seeing where you can integrate social media into your customer service can be a hugely beneficial thing from the customer perspective. It's another touch point, it's a place where they can reach out to you. So if you're not currently using social media for customer service, then that could be a whole different ball game for you. It may prove challenging in some ways if you have very traditional structured customer service in terms of telecommunication lines or reception desks or front of house staff, depending on what kind of business you are. Integrating social into that and it becoming a part of it can be quite challenging, but there are ways to do it, and there are different dashboards and platforms and systems that you can use to try and help that. Another one of your goals might be to improve your search rankings. So you may wish to come up for certain keyword searches. Now this isn't going to be the golden goose that will kind of help you with that, but it will certainly assist in terms of having social content linking back to your site. Another of your goals kind of linked to that really would be to increase your traffic. So you may wish to try and drive more traffic to your business. If you're a very data-driven business and you know that X amount of visits to your website converts X amount of sales, then that clearly will be a clear driver for you to try and drive traffic to the site. And you may want to adapt different content strategies around that, and we'll come on to that again in a bit. One of your other goals might be to establish yourself as an industry influencer, and this can be a really powerful one. So rather than looking at using social for customer service or to generate sales, you actually may want to position yourself as an industry influencer. So a body within whatever industry you work in that is knowledgeable, that is sharing best practice, that is trying to shine a light or a route through the industry and pave the way for the future. So again, your content strategy may be very different if that's the approach that you would want to take. As an example, and just kind of reflecting this back on Big Wave, a lot of our content is around delivering information back into the industry. So it's around what we're doing in marketing, what we see other people doing in marketing, and highlighting that and sharing that. One of the other goals you may have is to provide market insight. And there are various ways to do that using social. On a base level, you're looking at analysing what your competitors are doing, but also keeping a track of the wider industry and the wider market. And you can get some incredible insight through a variety of social media platforms. So that could be a core goal. And finally, developing loyal fans is a great strategy. This may be a core goal for you for social. So in terms of developing those people that you can rely on to share your information and to really become proponents of your business. It kind of links into industry influencer, and you can actually find influencers within your industry that you can hopefully convert to loyal fans, or taking a more kind of blogger kind of route, utilizing influencers to market your business for you. So having thought about what your goals are, it's then a case of trying to define an audience against that goal, or those set of goals. So you may say actually you've got a handful of different goals. It's easier if you can tie it down to maybe 2 or 3, because you'll find content flows a lot easier, and it's a lot easier to think about who you're targeting and to focus when you've only got a smaller number of goals, which it's just a general thing that most people find in life anyway. But really on on social, narrowing down what your goals are will really assist you, and will mean that you'll take very different approaches depending on what those goals are. So in terms of defining your audience, most businesses would probably have a good understanding of exactly who their target audience is. Now, in most cases, that can be a hunch, and in many cases, it's demographically proven via the data that you have. And there are different ways of discovering that. So if you don't have that information or you don't know that information, then running things like an analysis of your database. So if you collect information or data on your customers or your clients in terms of anything from geography, so where do you get pockets of clients? If you work across the UK, do you get a large chunk of clients in the northwest? In which case, that's maybe the area to focus your social media attention on. Or are you getting more females than males? Do you get a certain age range? Once you know that, you can start to decide which channels you're going to use. Now, I'd imagine it's quite hard to see this on screen, but say you were targeting 16 to 24s, then you may want to think about using Snapchat as your social media channel, primary channel. If it was 55 to 64-year-olds, then perhaps you would then look to utilize Facebook. So understanding who you're targeting and why you're targeting them, you can then choose the channel that's relevant to you. So there's a real temptation, and you do see a lot of businesses that jump in on a number of different platforms because maybe you feel like you have to, or you see there's a logic or a reason to go down that route. But actually, if your audience isn't there, you can waste an enormous amount of time. And one of the things we'll talk about in a short while is actually measuring your audience. So understanding whether the core audience that you're going after is actually the audience that is following you on, say, Twitter or Facebook or wherever it might be. Because if it isn't, then unless your goal is to become an industry influencer, and you're not necessarily targeting people who will want to come and buy your product or take out your service, then you're not going to be reaching the right people. So step 2 is about auditing your existing channels. And there are lots of different things that you could look to audit. What we would typically suggest you do is to audit your channels at least once a year. So annually, take a little bit of time out just to run through all of your channels. It doesn't take long. You could do it in an hour to 2 hours as a kind of base point. Look at things like your branding. Look at things like your content. And I'll go through a couple of examples in a second. But really, just have a good look at what you're doing on social and see whether it aligns back to your goals and whether you're achieving those goals and whether it aligns back to the audience that you're trying to target for it. So having said, do it at least annually. If you could do it biannually, then that's fantastic. You may be able to do it quarterly. If you have a dedicated team or an agency, then you'll want to be doing it a bit more often in terms of some of the things that we'll look at, like updating your information. So let's have a look at the first one. So information and branding. So what tends to happen is a social media channel is set up, a bunch of information is keyed in, and you'll have information there like your opening times or your website addresses or a bit of blurb about who you are and what you do. And obviously over time that changes. Opening times might change, particularly if you are a location. So if you're a shop or a location-based business, then your opening times may actually change, say over the weekend. So we've got a bank holiday coming up on Monday. Unless you're watching this on catch-up, in which case do go to work on Monday. Your opening times may change, so keeping things regularly up to date ensures that the right information is there. It ensures that you've got consistency, and the parallel to that is your branding. So making sure that your branding is consistent across your channels. That doesn't necessarily mean having the exact same artwork across all of your channels, but it means having a narrative that has that thread of commonality. So having maybe similar profiles or similar cover image themes, similar colors or styles. Depending on your type of organization, that may become slightly more complex as you have perhaps sub-brands or you have different locations. But there are really easy ways of doing that, whether that be color palettes or parent logos or whatever iconography or signifiers you use within your business. So making sure that when people land on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or YouTube or Pinterest or Google Plus or Instagram, that wherever they are, they still get that sense of your brand and know that it's you and your authentic you that is talking. Um, so the second thing you may want to audit is your engagement and your content. So looking at the types of reactions that you might get, so say on Facebook, so do your posts get likes? Do they get reactions of any kind? It isn't the be all and end all, and again we'll talk about this when we talk about analytics, but getting likes on Facebook is great. Yep, absolutely. Getting things like clicks and reach are very important as well. So there are other things to measure outside of just whether someone likes your post. If I always liken this to like a billboard. If you pay for a billboard, then you got a huge amount of people that kind of come past and view it, but you've paid for that billboard. On social media, if you post something, you may not get 100,000 people that like it, but you may get 100,000 people that have seen it. So that there are different ways to look at what you're measuring, depending on what your goals and your audience are again. So it always relates back to that. The third thing that you might want to have a look at in an audit is unofficial channels. Now, if you're not a location, i.e. you don't have a business address, so say you're purely online, you may not find this, but a lot of location-based businesses tend to end up with unofficial channels that they don't know about. So unofficial channels is effectively where someone comes along and creates a new profile. So you may be a location, you've set up a Facebook page, someone has come along, they've tried to check in historically, not been able to find you because maybe their Wi-Fi or the 3G's not been particularly good, and then having not found you, they've just checked in and set up a new one, and then someone else comes along, they add a photo to it, and you end up with basically a duplicate page on Facebook or on another platform like Foursquare or Yelp or whatever it might be. So it's an idea to go through and really check for unofficial channels. Now, you're not going to need to do this too regularly, I wouldn't suggest. If you've never done it, I suggest go and do it the once. What you can then do is merge your channels. So if there is another Facebook page, you can try and claim it, you can merge it, it'll add the check-ins and likes to your page. But it's really just keeping on top of your brand and whether other people are potentially infringing it, but probably most likely by mistake duplicating for you. And then the final thing to kind of think about is who's got management and ownership of your channels. So have you got members of staff that left 6 months ago that have still got access to your Facebook pages? If they have, then that's probably not a good position to be in, particularly if they left under unreasonable terms or something. But having an understanding of who's got ownership is really crucial, and becoming more crucial the more that businesses are using social media. If suddenly it was taken away from you and you built up an audience and a route to market, or you built yourself up as an industry influencer, it could very quickly become unraveled by either not having access to it or someone posting things that you don't necessarily agree with or haven't been authorized. So there are ways of doing that. Hootsuite that I mentioned have got platforms that you control password stuff. All the native channels offer some form of admin control. TweetDeck is a great system from Twitter where you can share your business profile with another Twitter user so that they can post on behalf of it without using passwords. And Facebook has Facebook for Business, so Business Manager, which is a slightly clunky system and is not the easiest systems for people. Most people tend to not get on with it too well in terms of it being slightly clunky, like I said, but it is a great system for access control. If you want to lock down access and you want to provide people with individual access to pages that might be relevant to them, particularly if you're a large organization, then I would definitely suggest you get your organization set up for business, Facebook Business Manager. So that's something that you would want to build into your either annual or biannual, depending on how often you could do it, audit. But having said that, you would probably be advised to build in Facebook or social media management into a HR process. So if someone does leave your business, it's in there as one of the points that's checked, so that it doesn't just rely on someone checking every 6 or 12 months. So moving on to step 3, this is around developing a content strategy. So once you've defined your goals and you've defined your audience, it will pretty much give you a direction that your content needs to go. And thinking about your content and what kind of content you're going to put out there is really about trying to find information and provide content that is relevant to that audience and those goals. And we've got a few examples of different types of content. We've got a slide in the second with a whole bunch of different ideas. But really it's about defining what things are you going to talk about. So rather than just having an approach where someone panics on a Friday and goes, I've got nothing to post next week. You've actually got a structure to it, because it will enable you to get other people to assist you, and it will enable you to pull together a strategy that is fairly easy to implement and takes away quite a lot of the stress of trying to just come up with stuff on the fly. So we're going to go through a few ideas. Memes are incredibly popular. I don't like memes. They're so annoying. Like, everyone's got that friend that's on Facebook that posts something about drinking gin on a Friday, or something happens and is really obscure, but they've somehow got a meme about it. The memes are basically an image with a bit of text, and they tend to be motivational or inspirational or humorous, and they work because there's a psychological thing that happens where people share a meme because it says something about them that means they don't have to say it themselves, and I think that's kind of why they're popular. Personally, that's why I think they're popular. So yeah, memes could be quite a quick thing to pull together. You can stockpile them as well, so it makes it quite easy to produce. And they lead into other visual content such as infographics, and can be born out of it as well. And again, I've got an example of that in a second, but if you haven't come across an infographic before, I'd imagine most people have been exposed to an infographic, whether they've realised it or not. Infographics essentially is taking chunks of information and boiling it down to a visual representation. So this is an example of an infographic in front of you. You've got a picture on the right hand side of a chap waving. He's got a red tie, he's got blue eyes, dark hair, and on the left hand side we've got a description of it. And effectively what this infographic is showing is that visuals are processed 60,000 times quicker or faster in the brain than text. And yeah, it's a clever one because you're in the process of realizing that as you're reading it. But the idea is that you basically boil down information into a very visual format. So we've got a couple of examples here of infographics. So on the left hand side of each one you've got the actual infographic or a part of it, and then on the right hand side of each one you've got a chunk of it that's been taken out. And the reason why I've picked these two is one, to show you how you can take a chunk and turn it into a meme. So suddenly, you know, one bit of content you can chunk into maybe 6 or 7 individual posts. But secondly, just to show you an example of really how you need to make the content visual and relevant at the same time. So if you look at both of these two large examples, you've got sport on the left hand side, and we've got figures there ranging for activity in sports in a particular year. They go from 2.2 million to 139,000, and the chunks are all equally proportional, so it doesn't match the figures that are on the screen. And if you look on the right hand side, you've got a Christmas tree of alcoholic drinks, which sounds amazing actually. That's such a great idea. That I'm going to paint in that. And it's got calorific counts next to each one. But they're not in any particular order. They don't necessarily correlate to each other. So they look great. They look visually great, but they don't necessarily deliver the information in an informational way quickly or with the relevance. So you do need to make sure that they do represent and are clearly disseminating information in a visual way rather than just looking quite pretty. But great example of how you can take something and chunk it into other things. And the benefit of an infographic is that you can put it out on a blog post. You can then drive traffic to your website. You can then take the infographic, turn it into memes, and you've got a number of different bits of content that you can easily start to digest and cut up and put in different places. Also, memes are great for putting onto Pinterest. So if you don't have a Pinterest account, if potentially it's right for your audience, or you have products that are potentially quite visual, or you are looking for a way to try and penetrate that market, having we always call it having a digital archive. So put your memes into a board on Pinterest, and you've got a digital archive of your content. So another great kind of repurpose of content. Competitions can work really well and can be an incredibly good way of creating leads. So again, going back to your goals, if your goal is to generate leads or sales, then running things like competitions can be a great way of doing that. And also, it's another good reason for people to follow you on social media, because if they're in with a chance of winning things or getting giveaways, things that are up for grabs, it gives that draw for people to want to follow you in the first place. And you can advertise that fact, be upfront about that fact, and try and generate that interest. So there are different ways of running competitions. You can use apps. So there are some pre-built apps that you can effectively get going quite quickly. If you search for them in Facebook, you'll come across a whole plethora of them. You can obviously bespoke build them, but you can also do them through different mechanisms. So like a good informal competition where maybe you give away something fairly simple is to run a picture caption competition, get people to caption whatever humorous style picture you put up, or maybe serious. It's a good way of running a quick kind of snapshot competition. So the final thing that we're going to talk about, and then I've got a slide with a whole bunch of ideas, is blogs. And blogs are incredibly beneficial for a whole range of different reasons. One, because it gives you social media content. So you've got something that you can push out there and talk about, and hopefully be proud of, that you've pushed out and is useful and relevant to your audience. But it also gives you potential routes to get traffic to your website. It gives you content that can be a great armory for SEO, so search engine optimization. It also gives you content that you can put into an e-flyer. So if you have a regular monthly newsletter, you can proliferate it with your blog posts or a roundup of your blog posts. So there's a whole range of different things that you will get out of producing a blog. So from writing one simple blog post, you can suddenly get sort of 5 or 6 beneficial marketing end results off the back of it. So we have a load of different ideas and suggestions that you could look to do for social media. Obviously, it will depend on your industry. So some of these may or may not be relevant to you. Photos and videos. Photos and videos tend to be the highest shared type of content that you'll see, and as we look at analytics, you'll see some of that in action shortly. So generating photos, generating video, fantastic. Obviously, can prove a little bit more difficult. Takes a little bit more time, perhaps, but you don't have to aim for high production value. Quick snaps. Smartphones are fantastic. They have got great resolution cameras. They are obviously highly mobile, and everyone's got them. So whip out your phone and film something. Do Facebook Live. Get on board if you run things like classes, or sessions or live events, then film them. Second thing, blogs talked about. Third thing, tips, advice, and resources. Again, depending on your business, you might be targeting a very particular type of audience, very particular demographic, for a very particular type of industry. So offering tips and advice and information about that industry could be great for that audience. Obviously, promoting yourself through news services and events is a clear type of content. The next thing, staff, customer, and client profiles are great because you can build up a backlog of these. So obviously this won't work if you've only got about 3 or 4 members of staff, because you're only going to get 3 or 4 weeks worth of profiles. But if you ask all your staff the same 5 or 6 questions and get a photo of them, you can start to present a more humanistic side of your business. Again, this will depend on the type of business that you are. So in some industries, people may be very interested in the type of people that are servicing them or working within that industry. In others, people may not be so fussed. But it does enable you to put a more human face to your business and to become a bit more personable, and to show the variety of different types of staff that you have. On a customer point or a client point, this is a way of building rapport and really trying to find those customers that could be your potential ambassadors. So anyone that does kind of jump forwards is likely to be an ambassador for you anyway. But this will try and help to cement that. Again, just ask the same 5 or 6 questions, have a photo, and you could always guarantee that you will get at least one like or share off the back of it, which would be that person. And then off the back of that, their friends will see it. They might then like, comment on it, and it starts to get higher up in the feeds. So really beneficial things to do, things that you can kind of power out an email and get a load of responses back, and then stick them in your armory for a later date. Games and competitions, we talked a little bit about. So things like picture caption competitions can be a good source of regular but relatively easy to run competitions. News and information, networking, so trying to find people in the industry to kind of bounce off. Service related things, so if you're, say, a restaurant, then why not start posting recipes? People aren't always going to come and eat in your restaurant 24/7 unless they're Alan Partridge. Requests, reviews, replies, 3 R's. So requests, so asking people what they want. So have you got a product line that you're looking at launching? Do people actually want it? Check. You could get a bit of consumer research in. Reviews, so people are always looking at social signals. So if people go on holiday, they'll look at TripAdvisor, and if there are 3 bad reviews out of 100 reviews, they'll rule out that hotel because it must be terrible. So social signals, social proof, can be incredibly strong at swaying people one way or the other towards your business. So garnering reviews, asking people to review, making it easy by putting links to TripAdvisor if you're destinational, or to Facebook to your review page if you're any other type of business. Replies, this is oddly one of the things that we tend to see gets overlooked a little bit. So you try and aim to get a load of people engaging with you, and then when they do start to engage with you, you don't reply to them. So replying back to comments, even if it's just to say thanks or to put a little thumbs up emoticon or whatever it is, it's another touch point, another opportunity you've got to make a connection with a customer or a prospect. Sharing news and achievements, if you're a local business and you are working within that local area, then sharing what's going on in the local area could be a good way of engaging and joining conversations. Influencer marketing, which we touched on a little bit, and polls. So if you do want to become an industry influencer, you could try and create your own polls and then feed that information back. So there are lots of different things. Essentially what you need to do is boil that down into a content strategy, so a structure of what you're going to produce and when. So here's an example. So you might say, right, we're going to do one daily recipe, and we're going to push that out on Twitter and Facebook. We're going to do one weekly meme. So we're going to start off with one every week, but we're going to try and move that to 2 to 3 to 4, however often you can. We're going to do one quarterly infographic. We're going to do a blog every fortnight. We're going to do one staff profile a month. We're going to do one customer profile or client profile a week. And we're going to do one monthly partner profile of an organisation that we're working with, or we are working with on referrals, or work within the local area, or maybe even suppliers. And finally, we're going to do one monthly Twitter chat. So we're going to join things like Devon Hour or Exeter Hour, Torbay Hour, Torquay Hour, Plymouth Hour, and start engaging with people across that. You may want to start your own. So if you find there isn't a local hour, then maybe start your own one, or start an industry-specific one. So if you work in a particular industry that's not overly vocal, and you struggle to try and find people to talk to you about that industry, then maybe start a Twitter chat and see how many people you can get engaged in it. So there's an example of a content strategy. Once you've got that, you can then say, okay, as an individual, if I'm responsible for social media, I can't come up with all of this stuff on a regular basis. So I'm going to say to Steve that works in accounts to come up with the monthly staff profile. I'm going to get Jane that works in the customer service team to do the weekly customer profiles. I'm going to give the quarterly infographic to Bob and the weekly memes to Jess, and yada yada yada, and away you go. And actually then you start to build up all this content that's ready to go, and you can start to push that out and schedule it, and however you're managing that in a much more timely and less stressful way. So having outlined our goals and our audience, done an audit and seen what we look like on social and what kind of engagement we're currently getting, and then produced a content strategy to start providing information that match those goals and those audiences. Step 4 is to then use analytics to track your progress. So it's about reviewing, reporting and updating. So there are different ways of measuring this, and there's lots of different things you might want to measure. I'm going to focus on Twitter and Facebook, and then we're going to look at some overarching ones. So on Twitter, surprisingly, not many people know or have been onto analytics.twitter.com. So that's the analytics specific site to get a load of data about your tweets and your account. You can get it from within twitter.com, but it's not as detailed, and you can't export anything. So analytics.twitter.com is a much better place to go. You can export your data. You can export up to 3 months worth. So I would suggest export 3 months worth of data. You'll get it as a CSV file. Use the A to Z filters, so you go highest to lowest, lowest to highest, whichever you want to do, and then look at things like your impressions, your engagement, the times of day when you get the most engagement or the most impressions. Look at the number of likes that you get, or the favourites rather. Look at the number of retweets. So all these different metrics. Have a look at what is the commonality with the things that you think are good. So where you get your most reach, so the most number of people that potentially seeing it. What time of the day is that? Is your audience mostly on Twitter in the afternoon? Are they mostly on in the morning? Is it relevance? Is it spread across the day? When do you get the most clicks through to your website? And start to look for patterns. You can do it via analytics.com, or you can use other systems. There's one called Autonomy, which is paid for, but it does on-the-fly analytics, and it works out loads of stuff for you. So there are lots of ways of getting the data, but really it's just looking for what the common patterns are, and then taking those and syncing that back into your content strategy. On Facebook, their platform, I personally think is a bit easier to navigate through because they've got certain dashboards kind of ready. So if you haven't been on it before, go onto your Facebook page, on the Insights button, which you can see from the big blue arrow there, and then you're going to get a whole load of data. So the most interesting things are ages and gender. So you can see exactly the types of demographic people you've got following you. You can look at location, and they're actually really important ones to look at, and we'll come on to that in a minute. So again, we'll pick up a few more of these in a moment. But some of the other content and analytic data you can get are most recent posts. So you can see your most recent posts and the data around them, which things work, which ones don't. You can see on here there's a few, there's about 5 posts on there. The one that's done the most engagement, got the most reach is the video. So clearly that's showing the videos are working. Maybe the content. So maybe dig a little bit deeper, but on the face of it, it looks like videos are working better. So videos is the way forward there. You can also benchmark yourself. So just before we came on, I plugged in a few of our kind of perceived competitors, just to see kind of how we were kind of ranking, and we were doing pretty good. So thumbs up us. So you can plug in up to 5. But the types of things that you might want to have a look at are different metrics, like your likes and followers. So yeah, that's fine. That's an all right measure. It will tell you obviously how many people are liking and following you, and that's great. But unless you go and look at the analytic data, you may find that actually, if you're a UK business and you're in a very specific geolocation, like say Exeter in your shop, if 50% of your followers are from America, then if you don't have online sales, they're unlikely to ever come and buy from you. So you're talking to a large chunk of your audience that actually would have no business commercial value. So yeah, likes and followers can be useful, but always look at the underlying data there. One of the more interesting figures to look at is shares, retweets, and reach. So reach is probably one of the most interesting ones. So with reach, what reach is showing you is the number of times that your post has been shown on a screen, whether that be desktop or laptop or mobile or iPad or whatever. But you do need to take that with a pinch of salt. So if you are finding, for example, with your reach, it may be sort of 10,000 metric. So potentially it's been shown on screen 10,000 times. If someone's on a mobile and they scroll past very quickly, then it will count as reach, so count as being shown, but obviously no one's digested that or taken that in. So you do need to take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Some of the other things you might want to measure: sales conversions. So if you use something like pixel tracking, you're using Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics, you can measure that. Offline, you can measure it through source sheets. So asking people that are taking the sales or the purchase or whatever to ask where they saw you, which is a good thing to do anyway, because you'll get insight into your other marketing materials. The number of posts can be a good one. So if you are starting off on a journey to kind of boost what you're doing on social, maybe simply measuring the number of posts that you're doing will be a good way to keep a track of your progress. The number of messages that you're getting, if you're looking at a goal of using customer service on social, that could be a way of seeing whether people do actually come to you and ask you questions or seek out customer service through social. And you can measure your response time, so how long it takes you to respond to people. The number of clicks that you're getting through to your website, so if your goal was to get clicks on your website, then that's obviously a clear measure. Number of new reviews you get, sentiment and emotion, which is quite hard to do. You need kind of specialist software for that. Competitors, so how you're doing against your competitors, and as you saw on Facebook, it's quite easy to measure that. So having thought about what are the core metrics you're going to measure, you then want to put that into ideally a monthly report. So in that report, you'll outline what you've done in terms of promotions, what designed materials you created, what content you generated, what are your key metrics, so those stats that we just kind of looked at. What are your top performing posts? What analysis have you made from that? And therefore, what are the improvements you're going to make next month? So again, depending on the size of your business, you may or may not want to do this. If you have stakeholders or you have members of staff that you report to, then producing this shows the effect of your work and the input that you're putting into it, and therefore the financial input into social. A great measure is Google Analytics traffic. So you can look at referral traffic and see what social sources are converting to you or referring to you. So there you can see whether you're getting more traffic to your website from Facebook than you are Twitter, in which case maybe do more on Facebook because it works, or do more on Twitter because it's not working. And finally, step 5 is to adjust your strategy as needed, which kind of goes without saying, but adjust, update and refresh. So using that information on a monthly basis, adjust and change your strategy to meet your goals. And if your goals aren't being met, then maybe think about changing your goals, because maybe they weren't right for that platform, or maybe think about using different platforms. So there's nothing wrong with abandoning a platform if your audience isn't there or if your goals aren't working. Generally speaking, it will mean looking at what's going wrong and trying to identify that first, but you may already have an understanding of that. But there is no point putting all your energy into servicing a channel where your audience just simply isn't there. So as a summary, those 5 steps were to outline your goals and define your audience. And we got a couple of things for you to think about. So decide what are you going to use social media for and who your audience is, and are you currently pushing out content that meets those objectives. Number 2, audit your existing channels. So make changes to the branding on your channels, and what channels that you currently have best represent your brand. Replicate that across the others. Number 3, develop your content strategy. So create a content plan. Where will you source that information? Who will help you? Who has access to your Google Analytics or to various data sources? Number 4, use analytics to track your progress. So decide what metrics you're going to measure them, and where or who will provide that data. And number 5, adjust your strategy as needed. So a relatively simple one to finish off there. So thank you for watching our inaugural webinar, and we are planning on doing more. So coming up, we've got topics such as SEO and PPC. If you would like more social media information, we've got plenty of blog posts on our website, so bigwavemedia.co.uk/blog, and you can get things like cheat sheets with sizes and dimensions for major social media sites. And there's plenty of other blog posts about different types of marketing methodologies and platforms and systems as well. So please do check out bigwavemedia.co.uk/blog, and if you sign up to our newsletter, you'll get regular updates with roundups of our blog posts and invitations to webinars and events and giveaways and prizes and things. So a big thank you to our team that have input into this. So Designer Wayne, Technical Judah, who sorted out all the links and clicks, Content Beth and the account management team, Nicola, Dom, Larry, Becky, Luke, and also Ronnie. So we will be back again. In the meantime, please check out our blog, and good luck with your social media efforts.